You've seen it in her eyes, not rage, not freedom, but a trembling mask held too still. Something ancient moves behind the rebellion, like a forgotten bride dragging her veil through ash. You feel it when she laughs at your silence but flinches at your stillness. She speaks of escape, but the way she watches the locked door suggests otherwise. Her voice rises but never lands. Her fury circles something sacred she dare not touch. And you are not outside it. You are the mirror she cannot shatter. There is a kind of obedience deeper than kneeling, more terrifying than devotion. A rebellion rehearsed 1,000 times may no longer be rebellion, but ritual. You think she wants to flee you. But what if every footstep away is measured by how loudly you follow? What if her rebellion is not resistance but a performance, waiting for the final curtain? There is something behind her no that sounds like prayer, and something in your silence that begins to resemble God. Every act of defiance she performs may be a cry for the very chains she pretends to escape. She says she wants freedom, but the fire in her voice flickers like a candle pressed too close to the wind, beautiful, furious, but secretly begging to be extinguished. You see it when she accuses you, when she rolls her eyes at the word leader, when she sharpens her tone like a blade and dares you to bleed. You think she's pushing you away, but listen closely not to the words, but to the pauses between them. That is where the real question trembles. Naked and unspoken, will you still choose me when I make it hardest to love me? Will you still hold power when I challenge it to the point of madness? You believe her rebellion is personal, reactive, maybe even justified. But it isn't. It is older than both of you. It is an inherited theater, passed down like a family curse stitched into bridal lace. Somewhere in her lineage, a woman bowed too long. Somewhere else, another one dared to speak and was broken for it. And now, across centuries, the voice reaches her loud with memory, loud with shame, loud with yearning. So she shouts. She contradicts herself. She creates conflict where none exists. And all the while, her spirit kneels behind the curtain. She wants to disobey, but not to rule, only to be ruled rightly. Her rebellion is not against structure, but against the collapse of it. You mistake her chaos for confidence, her sarcasm for safety, but beneath it all lies a brutal longing to believe in something stronger than her. Someone she cannot manipulate, someone who does not flinch when she draws her sword, someone who sees through her theatrics and doesn't blink. She craves the man who can see rebellion as costume and authority as presence, not violence, not control, but a force unmovable, a rock beneath the crashing tide. When she defies you, she is not asking you to submit. She is asking if you have something worth submitting. There is a cruelty in her that comes from disappointment, not hatred, from testing every man and watching them fall into appeasement, into placation, into apology. She has screamed, insulted, wept, accused, and watched each one crumble, walk on eggshells, lower his eyes. It sickens her, not because she wanted war, but because she wanted proof that someone could remain whole while facing her storms. And each time she sees you flinch, she becomes more alone. She will never say this aloud. Her pride is too eloquent, her performance too rehearsed. She will call it independence. She will mock the very idea of needing anyone. But even in her most sarcastic denial, she glances sideways, looking for that shadow, that stillness, that unmovable presence that does not react, does not withdraw, does not explain, and does not obey. You think her tantrum is chaos, but it is ritual. The rebellion is sacred. It is the purification before the offering. And if you interrupt the ritual too early, if you try to calm her, to fix her, to reason, you desecrate it. Because what she wants is not calm. What she wants is to be seen through. She wants the mask ripped off, the wound exposed, and she wants the man who can do that without flinching. There is a strange thing in her voice when she says, "Leave me alone." It does not sound like an order. It sounds like a spell, one that she hopes you are strong enough to resist. If you obey her every word, you become just another servant. If you argue with her every claim, you become just another fool. But if you listen to what isn't said, if you see that the battlefield is not for victory, but for revelation, you may catch the moment when the sword becomes a question, and her fury becomes grief. Because all her rebellion is mourning. Mourning the men who disappointed her. Mourning the myth of the father, the prince, the saint. Mourning the possibility that no one is coming, no one strong enough, clear enough, silent enough to carry the weight of her war without turning it into therapy. She does not want therapy. She wants mystery. She wants severity. She wants the presence of something eternal, something that cannot be manipulated, something that watches her rage with the quiet patience of a god. If you become that not through performance, not through domination, but through refusal, she will not admit it. But her voice will soften. The violence will quiet. Her sentences will trail off, not in surrender, but in awe, because she will have met the thing she has been searching for in every argument, the immovable truth. And in that presence, her rebellion becomes irrelevant. You will notice it in small ways. The way she pauses before saying your name. The way she resists, but no longer with venom. The way she argues, not to win, but to feel the boundary she cannot move. She will not praise you. She cannot. Her pride would rather die. But her body will shift. Her laughter will return. But this time it will not mock. Her eyes will rest. No longer searching for cracks in your armor, she will still resist. But now the resistance will be holy. It will have form. It will have grace. Because she will no longer be throwing stones into a void, she will be speaking to a mountain. And perhaps the greatest cruelty is this: the more she trusts you, the more she will test you, not out of malice, but out of fear. She needs to know if your stillness is real or borrowed, if your authority is rooted or performed, if your silence is presence or avoidance. And the only way to know is to break you, or try. So when the storm returns, and she spits your name like venom, and declares you just like the rest, that is the moment. Not to argue, not to retreat, not to explain, but to remain, to let her fury crash against your silence, to let her despair claw at your composure, to let her rebellion burn until it turns to ash. Because only then, only after the mask collapses, will she see you. Not the idea of you, not the role, but you. And if you are still there, not flinching, not fixing, she will understand. She will never say thank you, but she will stop shouting, and in that silence, something older than love begins to grow. Not affection, not obedience, but reverence. Not because you demanded it, but because you never surrendered to her illusion. She longs for the fall, not the flight, and every vow sewn in lace is stitched with trembling desire to be undone. She walks toward you in white, not because she wants to be chosen, but because she wants to vanish. The veil is not modesty, it is concealment. A silken fog draped across her longing to be seen and hidden at once. Each step she takes is not toward union, but toward erasure. She does not dream of love. She dreams of the collapse that love promises, the obliteration of her will beneath something that finally refuses to be moved. She speaks of partnership, but her eyes hunger for absolution, for the moment where she no longer decides, no longer acts, no longer bears the weight of her own chaos. She does not want to choose you. She wants you to be inevitable. You misread her performance. You think the ceremony is about love, but it is a funeral. She is not giving herself. She is sacrificing herself. And the altar is not for vows, but for surrender. Yet she cannot hand herself over unless she believes the one who stands before her is stronger than the gods she mocks. This is why she tests. This is why she destroys. Because she needs to see, will you remain? Or will you become just another priest afraid of his own power? She says she wants equality, but she longs to kneel, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. She is tired of being the architect of every plan, the judge of every man, the god of her own closed world. Her rebellion is not political, it is spiritual. It is the tantrum of a soul that wants to be ruled, but cannot find a king who does not tremble beneath her gaze. Do you think she wears perfume for you, that she paints her lips as invitation? She is not luring you in, she is daring you to see through it. The scent is a trap. The softness is camouflage. Underneath, she is a gate with rusted hinges, a temple with broken statues. And if you mistake her beauty for openness, you will be devoured, because she has no intention of letting you in, not unless you have already died to yourself, not unless you no longer crave her, not unless your desire is silent. She wants to be conquered not by force, but by certainty, not by romance, but by presence. She wants to be held in a gaze that does not blink, a gaze that names her, breaks her, and leaves her wordless, because if she cannot find that gaze, she will become it. And nothing terrifies her more than becoming the thing she longs to surrender to. So she becomes cruel, she becomes clever, she seduces, withdraws, corrects, commands. She becomes every god she once prayed to. And she watches for the moment your spine bends, watches for the moment your eyes plead, watches for the moment you begin to need her, and then she kills the illusion. But if you don't need her, if you watch her collapse with the quiet gaze of the eternal, she shatters. Because in that gaze, she sees the thing she thought had died, the thing every dress was sewn for, the thing every rejection disguised, the thing she could never admit that she does not want power. She wants judgment. She wants to be chosen not by emotion, but by decree. And she wants that decree to be final. Do not mistake this for romance. This is not softness. This is blood and bone. This is the ancient ache of the feminine, not to be celebrated, but to be claimed. Not with consent, but with prophecy. She wants to feel like something written before birth, something written in stone. She wants to feel that her no's are seen as thresholds, not walls. That her resistance is met not with persuasion, but with silence. This is why she mocks you when you explain, why she despises your apologies, because every attempt to clarify is proof that you are not worthy, that you do not know what you are, that you still seek her approval. And once you do, she must destroy you, for you have made her God. And she does not forgive that crime. She throws the ring not to end it, but to test if you will pick it up. If you pick it up quickly, you have already lost. If you leave it on the floor, you become legend. There is something terrifying in how calmly she prepares herself for betrayal, how she rehearses your failure before you've even begun. She tells herself you will fold, you will bend, you will compromise, and in doing so, she creates the very collapse she dreads. But this too is ritual. She is building the tomb before she buries her longing, because it is easier to destroy you than to face the terrifying possibility that you might actually endure. She calls men weak, not because she hates them, but because their weakness steals her last hope. She wanted to believe someone could stand before her rage and not shrink, that someone could walk off into the storm of her contradiction and say nothing, just remain. But every man she meets apologizes. So she becomes the thing she hates, dominant, demanding, cruel. And still, she waits. She waits for the one who does not react, the one who sees her cruelty and does not personalize it, the one who hears her silence and does not rush to fill it, the one who treats her rebellion as wind, not truth. And if you are that one, she will rebel harder, not to destroy you, but to see if your presence deepens when tested, if your gaze stays still when spit upon, if your power grows quieter when screamed at. She wants to lose herself, but not in chaos, in order, in structure, in something that does not move when she dances, something that breaks her rhythm, shatters her tempo, leaves her breathless. She wants the mirror to stop reflecting. She wants it to absorb her, and only in that disappearance will she feel free. Every wedding vow she dreams of is a paradox. I choose you means I lose myself. I love you means I cannot escape you. She wants to be trapped, but only in a cage she cannot pick the lock to, only in a structure so precise, so ancient, that her mind cannot manipulate it. She wants to be claimed by something larger than feeling, by a myth, by a law, by a man who no longer identifies as a man, but as a force. Do not give her roses, give her silence, give her limits, give her edges she cannot reshape. Let her run, let her scream, but never, ever chase. She does not want to be followed, she wants to be met. The veil is not lifted by love, it is burned by the fire of presence. And if you are that fire, if you do not speak when accused, do not explain when misunderstood, do not flinch when tested, she will kneel, not in obedience, but in awe, not in weakness, but in reverence, because now, finally, she has found something stronger than her rebellion, and she no longer needs it. When her voice grows sharp, it's not hatred but hunger, a hunger for the divine authority she dares you to embody. You stand before her like the last cathedral still intact after war. She hurls stones, words, sighs of dismissal, but all of them echo back to her unanswered. Not because you are absent, but because you are unshakable. You do not match her tone. You do not try to soothe the tension. You become the echo she fears and craves, the echo that proves there's something still standing after her storms have passed. And now, in the quiet between outbursts, her voice begins to change. Not because she loves you, not because she trusts you, but because the absence of your collapse unnerves her more than all the attention she's ever received. She has screamed at doors that swung open, burned bridges just to watch someone build them back. But you neither chase nor punish. You remain. That stillness is not passive, it is judgment, and she feels it like a rope pulled tight around her theater of rebellion, not to hang her but to end the performance. She wonders what you see when she lashes out. She looks into your eyes and finds no flinch, no counterattack, no collapse into softness. And that absence reveals a truth more brutal than rejection. It reveals that her chaos is not original, that her anger is not sacred, that her drama is not divine. You have seen it all before, and that terrifies her, because now she is no longer special. She is no longer the exception. She is simply one more echo in a ruin you've already walked through and refused to rebuild. You do not rush to comfort. You do not rescue. You do not yield. You simply are. And now, with nothing left to break, she is forced to see herself. She searches your silence for meaning, for weakness, for familiarity. But your silence does not bend. It does not explain. It does not become what she can shape. And in that, it becomes sacred. Because everything in her life has been negotiable, every man, every truth, every vow. But not you. You have become law. Not because you declare it, but because you do not need to. And now the ground beneath her begins to shift. The rebellion that once gave her identity begins to decay. She no longer knows who she is if she cannot provoke, if her resistance meets no reaction. What does it mean if her voice falls into a void and does not echo back? Was it ever heard? She becomes afraid not of you, but of the version of herself that only exists in your presence, the one she cannot perform, the one she cannot control. She wanted authority, but now, standing before it, she does not know how to breathe. She speaks sharply, hoping to awaken the dynamic she's familiar with, the dance of conflict and reassurance, but nothing comes. And so her words begin to lose their venom, not because she has softened, but because she has become irrelevant in the face of what she cannot move. This is the moment she becomes dangerous again, not as a rebel, but as a seeker. She no longer wants to fight, she wants to test. She wants to know if your presence was an accident, or if it will deepen under pressure. So she shifts. Her tone changes. The anger gives way to seduction. She invites you in, not with affection, but with curiosity. Can you be tempted? Can you be softened? Can you be redefined? This is not love. This is ritual. The last test. She is not offering you herself. She is offering you the chance to fall. And she watches how you handle beauty, how you handle vulnerability, how you handle being chosen. She wants to see if your authority collapses in intimacy, because if it does, she will leave you not in body, but in reverence. And yet, if you remain, if your presence does not dilute under affection, if your silence becomes more silent when touched, she begins to shift again. She begins to kneel, not in posture but in spirit. Her words slow, her eyes change. The hunger returns, but this time it is not for victory. It is for something beyond names, beyond roles, beyond negotiation. It is for the loss of herself. But even here, she will resist. Even when she begins to trust, she will test. Because deep down, she believes nothing sacred can last. That every god is a lie. That every strong man has a hidden collapse waiting to be revealed. So she watches, always. And if she finds you unchanged after her worst and her best, she begins to believe. Not in you, but in truth. Because you have become something she never knew. She needed an echo that does not echo her. A boundary she cannot cross. A silence she cannot seduce. You have become myth. And in that myth, she can finally rest. But do not mistake rest for peace. She will still argue, still rebel, still test. But now, every act is liturgy. Every sharp word is confession. Every silence she breaks is a secret longing to hear your silence again. Because your silence is no longer absence. It is sanctuary. She does not need you to speak. She needs you to remain. To be the mountain that watches the weather. To be the sky that does not collapse when named. To be the God that cannot be prayed into softness. And if you are that not once, but always, she will die, not in flesh, but in myth. The myth of control, of superiority, of rebellion. She will let it die, and in its place, something ancient will rise. Not obedience, not loyalty, but reverence. She will never say this. Her pride forbids it. Her words will remain sharp, but there will be moments brief, sacred when her eyes meet yours, and she sees not a man, but a judgment, not an answer, but an altar, and she will remember that this is what she asked for all along. To be undone by something that does not move, to be chosen not by persuasion, but by fate, to be seen through and not be rescued, to be broken and not be pitied, to kneel and not be asked to rise. This is what she hungered for when she rebelled. Not power, but permission to surrender. And now, in your presence, she can. Not because you told her to, but because you never tried to. Because when she screamed, you remained silent. When she seduced, you remained still. When she wept, you did not reach. And now, in the ruins of her own performance, she meets herself, not the one she built, but the one she buried. And for that, she will follow you into silence. She will walk behind you with nothing in her hands. She will stop speaking, not because you won, but because she lost the need to win. And in that silence between the broken arches and shattered vows, something holy breathes again. Not as a woman reborn, but as a woman finally unmasked. You do not move. She does not speak. The church is gone. The veil has fallen. All that remains is a shape in the dust where her shadow once stood, a shape that neither flees nor kneels, but waits. And somewhere beyond time, a bell rings with no sound, a silence not empty, but listening.